Brian Kurtz, a legend in the world of direct marketing with over 4 decades of experience. Brian has had 2 remarkable careers. The first was a 34-year at Boardroom Inc, where he was a driving force behind the company's growth as a premier publisher and direct marketer, selling millions of products through innovative direct mail and direct response TV campaigns. In his second career as the founder of Titans Marketing, Brian continues to influence the marketing world by educating and mentoring the next generation of direct marketers. He has sold millions of dollars worth of products and services, created exclusive mastermind groups, and published invaluable resources for marketers. Brian is also the author of 2 acclaimed books, The Advertising Solution and Over Deliver, Build a Business for a Lifetime, Playing the Long Game in Direct Response Marketing. If you are an entrepreneur, especially in the coaching business, or any business to be honest, this episode is for you. Brian, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
It's my pleasure, Namita. And we were just talking before you hit record that, where we met. And You and I met almost 10 years to the day today at an event that I hosted in the United States, in Stamford, Connecticut, called the Titans of Direct Response. And you came, I guess at the time, from Malaysia or Dubai?
No, from Dubai. I've always been in Dubai.
Right. And you came from Dubai, and I didn't know you. You were this, we got to meet there, and you were like the one of the, I'll say, you came almost the longest distance. We had some people from Australia, but you were such a, and I say this as a compliment, you came as a sponge. You came to just soak up all of the knowledge, and it was an epic event. In fact, we had, your audience may not know these names, but people like Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham and Joe Sugarman, like, the best of the best in direct response marketing over the last 50 years. And it was a tribute event to my mentor and the founder of Boardroom, which you talked about my career. And after the event, I ended up finally leaving Boardroom and going into my second career, which we'll talk about. But I just remember when I met you, and I have like these pictures from the Titans event, and the picture of me and you, I think it was at one of the breakfasts, was one of the ones I treasured. And then we stayed in touch. I followed you, through your email blogs, through the building of Above Digital, what you were doing in your area of the world. And I don't want to say that, I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and seeing what you were then, and then in 10 years, what you've been able to accomplish today, that it comes full circle. And we're meeting again on your podcast, an influential podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners. And I'm just honored. I feel privileged to be with you. And in fact, you joined one of my masterminds for a while. You're such a lifelong learner, and anybody who's a lifelong learner is top shelf in my book. So, so I'm so happy to be here with you. I really am.
Thank you so much. That was a long introduction from you for me. I'm so grateful.
Well, you deserve it. You deserve it.
That trip to the US for your event changed the way I run my business, because I didn't understand the impact of copy in the way I ran digital advertising back then. Digital was getting picked up. We were more of a web design agency before that. And we were getting into email marketing, Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff like that. And attending your event and meeting all these amazing copywriters and understanding how copy impacts decision-making and eventually leads to sales. It doesn't have to be just billboard or above the line advertising, but these principles apply across the board. It just changed the game. And we became you won't believe, Brian, I till date have clients who've signed up with me then. So my oldest client is 15 years and counting. And one of the reasons they have stayed is because they're seeing results. And they're seeing results is because I applied what I learned at the conference.
I'll do a quick direct marketing concept, because we're going to talk more about my entrepreneurial journey and all of that.
Yeah.
But interestingly, when you say copy and copywriting, I've written a lot about this over the years. And it's sort of like, I always say that the copy and the creative is the least important element of a marketing campaign until it's not. And what I mean by that is that and you know this because you've read my book and you've read the stuff that I write on a weekly basis, that the most important thing in a marketing campaign is the audience, the list, the media that you're buying, because a great message and great copy to the wrong audience, you get zero orders, you get nothing. The
Absolutely.
opposite is not true. If you have the best audience segmentation, the best list segmentation, the best um, the best research on who your audience is, you could throw almost anything at them, and you'll get some orders. Now, when you put the copy on steroids, once you have the 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 audience dialed in and your offer dialed in, then that I call that direct marketing nirvana. It's like, it's like the pinnacle, because then the creative is the most important. The copy and that's what you found out, because you came from
Yeah.
the media side, you came from the media buying side, and you knew how critical that was. But now when you put world-class copy and messaging to that research that you were doing in an excellent way, now you've got it's the three-legged stool of marketing. It's list, offer, creative. And but the list is the most important. The list meaning that the media, the audience, and all of that. And that's just an important concept, which I stress in my book, because I think a lot of online marketers, because email is so cheap and Facebook advertising is cheap compared to what I did in the olden days called direct
Yeah.
mail, which you
Yeah.
pay postage and printing for. Um, that I think the discipline that I learned in direct mail helps me in this way. And I teach that to my online marketers, because, just because email is cheap doesn't mean you have to be sloppy.
Yeah.
And so it's an important thing. And I'm really glad that you got that piece at the event in
Yeah.
2014, because that definitely probably took you to heights that you never thought possible. But you already had the foundation, which is, you had an advantage because you had the foundation of buying media. So
Yeah.
really, I'm really pleased that we got to meet there, and that we've been friends ever since.
Yes. I'm going to start the session with the first question that you studied English and business administration in college, and you started your career as a leasing agent. I checked that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And from leasing agent to boardroom, what got you to boardroom? And I have a second joining question. And you stayed with boardroom for 33 years. What's the
34
secret?
years to be exact.
34
Yeah.
years, sorry.
Yeah. Don't short me out. Um, yeah, well, the thing was that when I was an English major in college, and to my parents' chagrin, they were not happy with me majoring in English. They wanted me to be an accountant or a lawyer. They were very practical people. They almost pulled me out of college when I said I'm going to be an English major. And they said, "What are you going to do with that?" And I said, "You know what? Maybe I'll learn how to read and write." And they looked at me like, like my parents looked at me a lot in those days, like I had three heads. Um, but but I really believe that, because, the skills that I learned in college took me much further than, majoring in anything else. I learned that later on, but I really knew that the fundamentals of reading and writing would be a good thing, and I was right. So my first job, I just wanted to get a publishing job in New York City. So I would walk around after I graduated. I'd walk around. I mapped out my day. I was living at my parents' house, an hour and a half from the city. The night before, I'd go to the library. I'd map out where I was going to walk the next day to all the publishing houses in New York City. And I had to do it on paper. We didn't have GPS back then.
Yeah.
And so I'm mapping out my path, so I don't want to go to like one publishing house on the east side of Manhattan to have to go to one on the west side. So I had to map out my route to maximize how many publishing companies I could visit. I'd walk in, I'm wearing a suit, I'd walk in, I'd hand my resume to the receptionist, and I just figured I got to put myself in the game somehow. And I didn't know what would come of it. And the leasing agent thing was just the job that hired me. I mean, it was just like, and it was a company called Samuel French. They
Mhm.
did they published plays.
Mhm.
And then they also, would publish the scripts. So if you were going to do a show that they had the rights to, you would just get that I would send out the royalty statement for the show, and then we'd send out the scripts, for the show for the cast. And we did, it was
Okay.
like high schools and amateur productions and all that stuff. So it was just
Yeah.
a job I walked into for like $150 a week. I mean, it wasn't big bucks either. And I was living at home. My commute
Yeah.
took basically the bus fare took my salary away. So, um, but I needed to get my feet wet in something. And that I was only there for 6 months. But
Mhm.
how I got to Boardroom and how I got into direct response marketing, again, I fell into it because I just was so interested in like everybody I talked to on those journeys around New York City. And one of them was with a headhunter who just liked me. And sometimes I can get people to like me, which is always a good thing. And so we
I think.
connected really well. And he said, I have this company, an entrepreneurial company that's looking for guys like you and women like you. Um, and I'm going to get you an interview there somehow. And that was Boardroom. The founder of Boardroom was Martin Edelston, who was sort of like entrepreneur classic, ADHD, but totally curious and always looking for the next thing. And I got an interview there, and it happened to be in list management. I didn't know what list management was. And this is 1981,
Yeah.
um, list management was basically in direct mail that you put your list on the market for other people to mail it. And most people had their list with a list manager that managed a lot of lists. Boardroom happened to manage its list in-house, which was not
Okay.
the norm. And they had this job for in-house list manager. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I fell into it. I figured I'd get to Boardroom, I get into the editorial side. We publish newsletters and books, as you mentioned. And I
Yeah.
figured as soon as a job opened up in the editorial side, I jump at it. Interestingly, and this was like a fork in my career, that it's like, there's an expression from Yogi Berra, the baseball player, that says, when you hit a fork in the road, take it. Like,
Yeah.
kind of weird. He things that didn't make sense. But but the interesting thing is that I was there for like a year and a half, and a job opened up at one of our newsletters for a junior editor. And I went to Marty. I said, I want that job. And he had noticed what I was doing in list management. I mean, I took to it like water, like a fish to water. I was so into it because I was so into the audiences that the people that would use our list, and how I would
Yeah.
present our lists to all the mailers, all the marketers that wanted to use our list. I was
Yeah.
seeing the connection very well. And he said to me, I said, I'd like to have that job in the editorial side. And I'm 23 years old. And he looks at me, the CEO of the company, and he says, Brian, you know, you have a nose for marketing. I think you should stay where you are. And, when the president of the company says that,
Stay where you
you're
are.
talented in what you're doing, as opposed to thinking you're talented in something else, which I could have done the editorial job, but he kept me there. And I guess that was the beginning of my real career, which ended up spanning 34 years. I went from list manager to like the assistant marketing director to the marketing director to the executive vice president of the company, becoming an equity partner in the company. Um, and that moment was one of those moments, you have those moments in your life, those pivotal moments. And him
Yeah.
telling me, Brian, you have a nose for marketing, and I think you should stay there, was like one of the most amazing moments of my career. And so I then just totally dove in to everything about direct marketing. I found all of my mentors, all of my, like Gene Schwartz, who was one of the greatest copywriters of all time, wrote the book Breakthrough Advertising. Um, he he wrote for us, and I ended up he mentored me because I helped him with his business. He had a
Mhm.
business on the side. I helped him with his list selection for his health book business. And I always say you don't choose your mentors choose you.
Chooses you. Yeah.
And he chose me because I extended myself to him with no expectation of him doing anything for me, because I just knew he was so great. So I saw the greatness in him, which everybody knew about him. The funny thing is, fast forward, 45 years later, I own the rights to Breakthrough Advertising, one of the greatest books ever written on
Yeah.
copywriting, marketing, and human behavior. How did that happen? It happened because my mentor chose me. Then, he passed away. I launched my own business, and his wife said, you're the only person I'm going to trust with the rights to this book. I didn't get there by magic. You
Yeah.
know, I I I invested my time, my effort in looking for greatness around me, and just to stand on the shoulders of as many of those people as possible. I'd say if there's one thing that triggered my success, it was that I understood that I didn't have to invent anything. I didn't have to, it wasn't about ego. I mean, we all have ego. We all want to be proud of what we do and all of that. But it didn't matter. Getting the credit didn't matter to me. And what I learned is that I knew how to connect the dots. So I could get information from this person, that person, or something else. And I guess my killer app is that I can connect the dots. Now, I don't have to invent anything, but I can be a messenger for concepts that a lot of people didn't understand in direct marketing, that I made easy for them to access, especially in my book. And,
Mhm.
that is the most satisfying thing to me. When someone says to me, I talk about RFM in my book. I don't have to go into RFM, but it's a mechanism how people behave in the marketplace: recency,
Mhm.
frequency, monetary value. And
Mhm.
I had someone write to me and said, I read about RFM in your book, and it's the first time I really understood it. That fills me up. That is what gets me up in the morning. Like, I became the messenger on a concept that I didn't invent, that I wasn't really responsible for, but because I had applied it in some of the most consequential ways in my career, I was able to explain it so that more marketers could access it, more copywriters could access it. When,
Mhm.
giving people access to wisdom and knowledge, that's my game. That's my game.
Yeah. In fact, you've done a fantastic job with the book. By the way, I was part of the mastermind when you started the first cohort for creating a workshop out of that book. I'm going to talk more about how you come up with these workshops and how you kind of make it easy, and you're spreading it. And more people are getting to know about the book, learning the concepts, and doing better in marketing, I guess. So
Yeah.
you are the right person who deserve the rights to the book, I
Yeah,
must
and
say.
we've actually created a companion volume, Breakthrough
Mhm.
Advertising Mastery. It's 500 pages. It's got we track down every ad. I actually a young copywriter in Brazil wrote to me and said, Brian, I have every ad that's mentioned in Breakthrough Advertising. And I
Wow.
said, wow, that's what I said. And so the companion volume has like 300 plus ads in full color,
Wow.
of every
Okay.
ad that Gene mentions. And, he mentions it every ad for a reason, whether it's the
Yeah.
headline, the copy, whatever. Um, and then we also have worksheets in that companion volume, which came from the boot camp, which you
Hmm.
mentioned, the Breakthrough
Yeah.
Advertising Boot Camp. And again, I think, this idea of creating courses, creating workshops, you know, it's not, I'm not going to say it's not, I'm not going to say it's easy, but when
Mm.
you map out the steps of what your inventory is of knowledge, what your and this is true for everybody, what
Mhm.
your inventory is for what you can teach and what you can share, um, you know, creating the course is that's just the logistics of it. It's really, what do you want to express,
Mhm.
and what's the knowledge you want to share, the wisdom you want to share, and put it in a form that makes sense for, the knowledge. And,
Yeah.
Breakthrough Advertising, it was easy because the book is so dense, and we were able to pick it apart, create exercises. Like we re-engineered the book into like a workshop.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm not, it ended up looking back. I mean, while we were doing it, I wouldn't say it was difficult, but we had to do the work. You know, we had to
Yeah.
really dive deep, but it wasn't that hard really
Yeah.
because we had great material to work with. And
Yeah.
everybody has great material to work with. Whenever I meet with somebody who's a new member of my mastermind or a new client, I always
Mhm.
like say, I always, the first thing I ask them is like, let's assess your assets. Everybody has assets, whether
Yeah.
you have a Facebook list, whether you have copy, whether you have a book, whether you have articles you've written,
Yeah.
whether you have a list of some sort. Everything is an asset,
Yeah.
and you need to assess those assets first and foremost so you can figure out how to deploy them. And then the things you don't have, you can buy on the outside, including
Yeah.
product. You know,
Yeah.
you can buy someone else's product and sell it to your list because that product might be under marketed, but you have the marketing engine to
Yeah.
market it. There's so many ways to do it, but you have to start with assessing your assets. What do you have? What do you have that you already own? And when I say own, that you can get to, you possess in some way,
But
and
you're not
how
talking just about the list, right? Sorry to interrupt. You're not just talking about the number
no,
of
not at
people's
all.
email addresses or contact numbers or residential addresses. You're talking about, in general, the knowledge and expertise that they have, whether or not they have written a book. Say they had a job for 20 years, which they left, and now they want to convert that into a business. They don't want to
Right,
do a job anymore. So that's
right.
their asset, whatever their experience that they have spent in doing the job for 20 years, and then how they can use that experience and come up with a product, like consultancy business, for example.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and
Yeah,
then kind
it's
of
so important. Yeah,
package
it
it
say again?
and then kind of package it to give it to the end customers and not through a job, not through your own business and direct practice, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. An asset can be intellectual property, um it can be like a thought you had about how to construct a business. That's an asset that you could. Jay Abraham, who was at the Titans of Direct
Mm-hmm.
Response event 10
Yeah.
years ago, who wrote the foreword to my book,
Yeah.
great marketer, great mind. He has an expression that says, if you've done it, you have an obligation. He says moral obligation to teach it. If
Yeah.
you've done it, you have a moral obligation to teach it. And that's how my two careers were created. The first 34 years was doing it. Now, since then, I'm teaching it. But when
Yeah.
I say teach it, I'm not teaching it like from the stage. I do get on stages, but I'm
Mm.
not just teaching it. I'm teaching it to learn even more
Yeah.
because, mindset of a student all the time to be able to be a great teacher. Um, I just went to an event where I'm going to write a blog post about it, about a woman who has like a knitting a knitting program,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that and the topic the topic of the presentation she gave was on hiring experts,
Mm-hmm.
and she had three different parts of it, but the one that she talked about was the difference between being a doer and a teacher, a doer and a teacher. Now, in
Okay.
the case of knitting, there are some people, and both can work. In her case, you can be a doer and do it, and then show how to do it. Or you can just teach it. In marketing and what the area I'm in, you can't be. I don't think you can be a teacher without being a doer. Then you're
Mm.
just a consultant with no experience if you
Yes,
haven't done
your theory. Then it's just
it. Yeah, in
theory.
theory, right. And so
Yeah.
I'm gonna like pick apart what she used and then take it to my group,
Mm-hmm.
my universe of marketers and copywriters, and basically say that every teacher needs to be a doer. You have to do it before you can teach it. And
Yeah.
I believe that in my soul. And anybody who's teaching from theory and from books and not having done it and failed often,
Mm-hmm.
um, probably is not a teacher worth learning from. Usually, I don't want to badmouth every teacher who
Yeah.
hasn't done what they're teaching, but man, if you've done it and then you can figure out a way to teach it,
Yeah,
that's the key. That's the
that's
key.
magical. And you should learn from that teacher or mentor. I
Exactly.
mean, it's amazing. While I'm running my agency, there are so many things we do in a campaign, and when you apply the same things to another campaign, it doesn't work. So every account is unique, every campaign is unique, every product or service is unique, and sometimes things apply here and there, but a lot of times it's different, and there's a small tweak that makes a difference, and you know it
Yes.
only when you do it. I would like to talk a little bit about a sponsor. This podcast is brought to you by Above Digital, a sales focused performance marketing agency specializing in lead generation and e commerce revenue growth using paid ad campaigns. A business needs a continuous flow of quality leads to thrive, grow, and scale. The best way to get quality leads is through paid ad campaigns that use the right hook and messaging for your target market and makes them interested in your products or services. Above Digital can help you generate quality leads with strategic paid ad campaigns. Visit our website www.abovedigital.com to book your discovery call and explore how we can help your business grow and meet its revenue goals when you're
Exactly.
actually running them and doing the campaigns. You've
Exactly.
worked with so many amazing copywriters and marketers in your journey in entrepreneurship and in 34 years with Boardroom. Can you share some key lessons or experiences that shaped your philosophy in marketing during this time, during this whole time,
Yeah.
from all
I
of them,
mean,
like a saransh, or what do you say, like a nutshell?
yeah, I mean, I've got quotes up the wazoo. I've got, from all of my mentors, one is better than the other. I'll just, I can just pick a few that come to mind immediately. There's one from Gordon Grossman, who was the architect of the Reader's Digest in the 1960s and 70s, which was a direct marketing giant. They invented the sweepstakes, basically, and he was a consultant for Boardroom when I was there. And he has a quote which is actually on my wall. It was in the war room at Boardroom. Um, and it's first find out if you have a business. And that just is so basic. But basically what it's saying is what's the minimum required effort and monetary outlay that I can make to figure out if I have a business or not, as opposed to, what happens in the online world today where everybody wants to test everything up front. They're going wide instead of going deep right away. So that was a major lesson in that. Dick Benson, who was my guru in direct mail and lists, he said, you know, he's the one that said no marketer and mailer spends enough time on lists. And before he died, I got him to say no one spends enough time on lists except Boardroom, because I developed a list selection system that was, I mean, I say invented. I say I never invented anything, but I connected the dots on a system that got to the root of every list that we ever mailed. So that, not that I didn't want to mail a list that didn't work. You need to mail lists that don't work, or go to buy media that doesn't work so you can find out what does work.
Yeah.
But the idea is, like, you can hedge your bet and you can stack the deck in your favor every time, just and doing the heavy lifting up front on the audience that you're going after. Um,
Yeah.
there was, Gene Schwartz has a quote that says, if you're not if you're not out in the world every day paying attention to what's going on around you in your market, you're finished. And
Hmm.
I take that as a battle cry, and Dan Kennedy, who we saw at Titans of Direct Response, has an
Hmm.
expression, you know, marketing by walking around, to sit in a room, and just contemplate the world of audiences and marketing ain't going to get you there. You got to be out there. You've got to be aware of what's going on, even not in your core area of expertise, just to get a sense of what the marketplace is happening. Gene Schwartz's favorite magazine was the National Enquirer. those of you, if your audience doesn't know the National Enquirer, but it's a rag, basically a gossip rag. But
Yeah.
he got a sense of what the world was about by
Yeah.
reading National Enquirer. He also read like every journal in the health area because he had a health book business. So he
Yeah.
read scholarly journals and the
Yeah.
National Enquirer, and he put them on equal footing in terms of how he assembled his knowledge and wisdom. And the interesting thing is that he had another expression that, well, actually in breakthrough advertising, it's like he used to say that, you know, the copywriter or marketer doesn't create the desire in the marketplace. The desire is already there.
You need
The
to
the
identify where the
copywriter or
desire
marketer,
is.
yeah, you have to corral it. You have to
Yeah.
go figure out how to,
Yeah.
but you have to, you can't just, it's like when, I don't know if, if your audience watches Shark Tank, I don't know if it's an
Yes, we
international.
do.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I do.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
so Shark Tank, is all about, oh man, I, I've got this product that, is part
Yeah.
of a 18 billion dollar industry, and I only need this much. Well, I don't know. A lot of the sharks are out after that because
Yeah.
they're looking to create a business, not a product. Now, some
Yeah.
products do get on Shark Tank and blow up, and it's a single product.
Yeah.
But I always say a product is not a business, a promotion is not a business. Building a business, that's why the subtitle of my book, Build a Business for a Lifetime,
Hmm.
Playing the Long Game in Direct Response Marketing, is so meaningful to me. And I took a long
Yeah.
time to write that subtitle, the long
Yeah.
subtitle, but I really
Yeah.
needed, and every word is meaningful, you know, building a business, not a promotion, not a product, playing the long game, which means that you're looking at lifetime value of every customer all the time, that you're not looking for one hit wonders and one
Yeah.
shot that make a lot of money and then you blow it out and then you have to figure out what the next product
The
is.
magic is in the repeat business.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Renewals,
Yeah.
continuity,
Upsell,
and I
cross
write about that
sells.
a lot in my book. Yeah.
So, how did you decide then after the Titans of Direct Response Marketing event? How did you decide to open your own business into coaching and mentoring?
Well, because I'm not going to say it was. I keep saying this. It was easy, but it wasn't that difficult. After 34 years of contributing to the industry at a high level, to connect with as many people as possible, and if you know from chapter 10 of my book, I say I hate the word networking. The
Yeah.
idea of contributing to connect is how I look at it. So I was
Yeah.
contributing for 34 years, mentoring younger marketers, um, um, honoring my mentors, getting more mentors because they chose me. All of that got me to a place when I decided to leave Boardroom that my business just was like right in front of me. Because I was,
Yeah.
again, I did it and now I was going to teach it. Well, how was I going to teach it? And interestingly, most most people who go out on their own after a long career of teaching and doing and all of that usually start at a low ticket item. So
Hmm.
you start with like a $15, PDF,
Yeah.
or you start with maybe a $1,000 course or something like that.
You
Well,
started
I
with
did not.
$5,000.
What's
I
that?
remember paying for it. You started with $5,000, right? The attendance to the event,
The
the
event was
titles of
like,
the,
yeah, for the VIP was $5,000, right?
yeah, I
But
remember
when I
paying that
left,
fee. Yeah.
but remember the event was still part of Boardroom, and
Yeah.
Boardroom got all
Okay.
of that money and all of that.
Okay.
But what I did off of the event was that I did an extra day, which was the VIP, which I believe you were
Yeah.
there.
I was there
And
as
I
well.
did
Yeah.
I did 26 hot seats
Yeah.
in 10 hours with my buddy David Deutsch, copywriter.
Yes.
And that was a third day. It was still part of the event. People paid $5,000 to be
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
And what I did, and there were I think 45 people in the room and 26 got hot seats. Hot seat
Yeah.
meaning that we worked on individual businesses for 15 or 20 minutes each.
Yeah.
And what I realized during that time is that I was born to do that. Like I was born to solve marketing problems for people in real time. Like just if you've got an issue or a problem with your marketing, a challenge, an opportunity, a new thing that you're looking at, and you lay it out succinctly and in that I can understand it, I can do some damage, positive damage, in terms of getting you to a place where
Mhm.
you can get your next steps, action
Yeah.
steps to move that along. So, and what I realized, and I wasn't going to sell, I knew I was going to leave Boardroom sometime after the event. And there was a guy there, a great marketer and great friend, Joe Polish, who has a mastermind of his own and
Yes.
just an amazing, amazing
Yeah.
guy, great friend. I've known him for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And he was there. And at lunchtime, he said, Brian, what kind of offer are you going to make to these people? I said, what do you mean? Like, I was for the guy, it's like he calls me the director of sales prevention, like, because I didn't see right in front of me that these were all buying units for me. They were there because they wanted to be with me, these
Yeah.
50 people.
Yeah.
So my business was laid out right in front of me. However, I wasn't going to do a pitch for a mastermind or anything like that. But I realized that if I got them each to write on a piece of paper, would they be interested in working with me in the future if I was no longer at Boardroom? Or I forgot how I phrased it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to let people know I was leaving, but people knew I
Yeah.
was that the event was kind of like
Yeah.
this was going to be an incredible event, and it would be a way for me to leave Boardroom in better than when I got there. Basically, it's like leave the
Mhm.
campsite better than when you got there.
Yeah.
But everybody wrote on the piece of paper, yes, 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 yes. So when I left Boardroom, I had, I launched a mastermind for $20,000 a company. Actually, if they had a partner, it was $25,000. And I got 23 companies immediately to sign up.
Wow.
That's a $500,000 business
Yeah.
immediately.
Yes.
So, but I knew that, and it was right in my sweet spot. I knew that I was going to do a mastermind. Masterminds, I mean, masterminds have gotten a bad rap in some places, but to me, a mastermind is such a great model of teaching and learning and sharing and connection if you do it right. The idea that people come for the information, they stay for the inspiration.
Yep.
And I created Titans Mastermind. The first thing I did is, I hired a full-time assistant who I still have,
Chris.
9 years later, Carla.
Oh,
Um,
Carla. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And I developed this mastermind, and it also said that I was not going to have more than 30 companies in the group to keep it
Mhm.
intimate. And
Mhm.
I had 23 when I started, got to 30 by the second or third meeting, and it stayed at 30 throughout its life. And I just recently folded it for good reason. Going through the pandemic, we had to do virtual, wasn't the same, had great speakers, of course, because you get better speakers when you're going virtual. But
Mhm.
um, after the pandemic, we held a few more events live, and I guess it had run its course. But it was. But that's how I started the business. Like the business
Mhm.
was launched on a $20,000 mastermind. Now,
Right.
not everybody can do that because they didn't have 30. Not everybody has 34 years of deep
Yeah.
relationships that I
Mhm.
had. I'm not bragging. It's just that that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so it was easier for me to do that. But what happened was that, so people talk about ascension models and descension models. So an
Mhm.
ascension model would be, do a $500 workshop, which then you hire a $1,500 coaching program to a $20,000 mastermind. That's an ascension, both in
Mhm.
terms of levels of expertise and price.
Yeah.
I had a descension program. I started at $25,000 and worked
Yeah.
my way down.
Down.
So
Yeah.
then I did a thing called Titans Master Class, which was 11,500 a year. And
Yeah.
instead of 3 live events, it was 2 live events. And so that appealed to a less experienced group of entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
marketers, but it was a good tier so that not everybody could afford the 20,000 and not everybody belonged in the $20,000 room either
Mhm.
because they
Yeah.
weren't experienced enough. The
Yeah.
11,500. And then I went down further to Titans Accelerator, which I still have, and it's
Mhm.
blossoming. You were in it for a while,
Yeah.
and that's $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Much more
that's my low,
affordable. Yeah. And then
and
you have
it's
different level of marketers. You have a lot of business owners in there as well.
yes, I have marketers, I have copywriters, I have agency owners, I have media buyers, funnel builders, all kinds of marketers. I have brick and mortar. You know, I have a
Hmm.
I have dentists and lawyers and
Yeah.
people who are looking to do better marketing in their service businesses, financial planners. So
Yeah.
it's a and by at a $2,000 price point, I can generate all kinds of content that would appeal to all of those people, but they all have to be committed to direct marketing, direct
Hmm.
response marketing, meaning measurable marketing, marketing that gets an ROI, return on investment. But they also can be copywriters and as I said, lawyers and
Hmm.
mattress salesmen. It's
Yeah.
like I have it runs the gamut. But that group, you know, um, and then so that was my low ticket was $2,000. But also I started realizing that I've got breakthrough advertising, the book
Yeah.
I
Then
sell
there's
for $125. That's an
yeah.
entry product
Yeah.
into the breakthrough advertising boot camp,
Yeah.
which then into Titan's Accelerator.
Yeah.
So everything works together in
Hmm.
terms of coaching. Everything's consistent and congruent.
Yeah.
And the price points, no, they're not irrelevant. The price points are important, but the
Yeah.
price points are strategic in terms of the level of expertise needed to be in the
Hmm.
group and what the expectations of the group are.
This podcast is brought to you by Above Digital. As an entrepreneur, there are two main ways to grow and scale your business: attract more customers or focus on getting repeat business from your current customers. Most successful business models depend on the second option, that is, cultivating repeat business. You will ask why? Because it's always easier to sell to someone who's already bought from you rather than to convince someone new to buy from you. But how do you do that? It all comes down to communicating the right offers and to make your current customers explore and try your other products and services. By using targeted email and WhatsApp communication and automation funnels, you can encourage your current customers to buy again and again. Above Digital specializes in helping businesses develop digital campaigns to boost customer loyalty and increase sales using email marketing and WhatsApp automation. To discover how Above Digital can support your growth, visit www.abovedigital.com and book a discovery call today. Yeah. But how did you? I have a couple of questions in this. One, coming up with the pricing of $2,000 because it has to be a profitable business at the end of the day as well, right? Then
Yes.
getting the members in it. So when you started, was it a big group? Did you start with a small group and then it grew into? And how did you grow it? Like, how did you get people into joining it? That's one. I'm going to ask a series of questions and maybe then you can answer them in the steps. The second is to keep the people year on year to renew it. That's another challenge. And the third one is to make people do things. Say, for example, I'm part of so many mastermind groups, but life comes in the way. There's business, there's personal. There are times like I'm not being able to attend one of the mastermind groups I'm part of and I pay monthly. I'm not even able to join the weekly calls. So I'm missing my calls. I'm not able to even see the recording because life is so generally busy. Eventually, I'm committed. So I know I'm going to find time to look into the recordings and get to the lessons, whatever were taught, and make sure that I apply them in my business. But for a lot of people, they lose it and then they leave it. So that again affects. So
Yeah.
having people consistently be part of the coaching program and give them value and make sure they use the value. How did you come up with that structure?
So it sounds like there are three questions. So the first one is how
Mhm.
did I build it?
Yeah,
Second one is how do I keep them and
engaged. Hmm.
engaged? And the how to get them to stay with me and get results,
Yes.
accountability. So
Yeah.
I'll answer each one. So the first, as far as building it, I was fortunate because I had been building a list where I was blogging every week and I started building the list organically. I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Lists don't, a list of customers or what I call my online family didn't just,
Mhm.
it didn't just create itself. You
Mhm.
need to do it organically. So I started writing regularly, a weekly blog. I started, posting it in certain places, Facebook, LinkedIn are two places. I didn't use them that much back then, but I
Mhm.
was able to, I had a list of just my email list of that I used in business. I was able to, go out to that list and say, I'm doing a blog, opt in,
Mhm.
I'll be, so it started really small. I mean, I had 100 people on it, and then it was 200, and then it was 500, and then it was 1,000. And so, and then I started going on podcasts.
Mhm.
And podcast is a great way to build your list. It's a slow build, slow build. I'm going to give out my website at the end of this podcast. If six
Absolutely.
people opt
Yeah.
into my list, great. If they don't, they don't. But
Yeah.
those six people, after listening to me with all of my propaganda for the last hour, are willing to sign up for my list and be part of my online family. Those are
Yeah.
really qualified people because they're
Yeah.
not sick of me yet and they want to hear more from me. So that's the way you have to build. You have to build it organically. It's not going to a Facebook group and scrape names and just
Yeah.
add
That's
them.
spamming.
That's spamming, absolutely. So you don't want to do that. You want to build it with people who want to be with you, who want to hear from you, and it takes time. It's not a quick thing. But by the time I left Boardroom, I probably had, I don't know how many names I had. Maybe I had a few thousand, wasn't that big. And so I said I'm gonna launch, Titans Mastermind. And so when I when I went out with an offer, I was able, and plus I already had the people from the Titans of Direct Response
Yeah.
that expressed interest. So that was the easy part. By the time that I got to Titans Accelerator, where I was
Mhm.
launching like a $2,000 broader mastermind, my list was over 10,000 people.
Mhm.
But again, you have to start somewhere and you got to build it. And so, and how to price it, when I launched it, I wanted to price it low because I wanted to be affordable. It was all virtual, all on Zoom. Um, and I wanted to be an over delivery. My book is called Over Deliver. It had to be an over delivery of content
I have
and
the book here. If anybody
over
wants it, they
delivery of
can go on overdeliver.com, right?
exactly overdeliverbook.com.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just, figure out what the benefits were of joining and accentuate those. And going just to fast forward quickly to the third question, I had to put in things about how they're going to get results and how they're going to have accountability by joining. But that's not the main reason. They come for the information, they stay for the inspiration. The idea of I can sell it as a great community of marketers and superheroes in marketing and copywriting, but that's not the selling proposition. The selling proposition is what am I going to get, and you need to create the benefits very carefully to the
Yeah.
audience that you're that you know well. And so interestingly, I also launched it just almost by coincidence in December of 2019. And, you know, I was launching a virtual mastermind before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And
This timing
interestingly,
was perfect.
it was perfect. I always say I predicted the pandemic, but not quite. But by the time, so I got 150 members from that first wave. So by March of 2020, when the pandemic really hit, I was at 150 members, and one of the benefits was a weekly live call where we did hot seats, where we got accountability for the members. I had guest speakers, I had people in the group present. I'm going to be home now for a while. I went to weekly calls. So I basically pivoted very quickly. Pivot was the word of the day during the pandemic. Everybody was pivoting.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so I was able to pivot to weekly calls, and that created, I mean, I'll say by accident, but I don't believe in accidents. I just believe that the world told me to go to weekly calls and that would increase the renewals because now I'm delivering even more information, probably 4 times as much per month
Yeah.
than originally what they originally paid for. And as far as pricing it, I wanted to price it as low as possible to have enough profit margin,
Mhm.
as you suggested. You need to have room to grow.
Yeah.
And so I launched it at $1,500 a year or $150 a month, which I thought was way cheap for what I was delivering. And
Hmm.
one of the biggest expense is my time, you
Yeah.
know, because I'm going on calls, in
Yeah.
that case, 4 times a month. But interestingly, I also wanted to have a physical product
Yeah.
associated with the membership. So
Hmm.
I had a welcome package, which I'm sure you received, which
Yes.
was a
A
my copy of
diary.
the book,
Yeah. A copy of
diary,
the
all
book.
of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then when you renew, you got a T-shirt, and so there
Yeah.
were and that was costly because that's physical product that needs to be shipped. And for you, I had to ship it to Dubai, so
Yeah.
it's not cheap to do that.
Yeah.
And then every month, I would ship a USB, which would have all
With
the
all the
calls,
recordings. Yeah. I still
right?
have them
And
in my box.
then
I see them every time I open the cupboard.
exactly. And so I wanted people to see that because that helps with retention as opposed
Yes.
to having it on your hard drive on your computer. They
Yeah.
still could get to the call, the
Yes.
recordings
Yeah.
in a digital portal
Yeah.
online, but I
Yeah.
wanted them to have something physical. So those are my costs. So as
Yeah.
far as pricing, you need to figure out what kind of profit margin you want with all the costs you have. And I had a lot of costs because I added the physical element, which most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people do a digital course and it's all digital all the time. And I think, as Dan Kennedy teaches, having an online component and an offline component is very important for the total package, so to speak, that you create much more value and tangibility, that you can touch something, that not everything is in the cloud,
Digital. Yeah.
the digital, right? So that's how I came up with the pricing. Now, your second question was, how do I keep them? And, you know, I was taught another good quote this was from Gordon Grossman and Dick Benson. They
Mhm.
said to me, you can't, they said in terms of subscriptions, and we had a newsletter at Boardroom, they said marketers sell subscriptions, editors sell renewals. Marketers sell subscriptions, editors sell renewals. What that means is if you take it out further, it's not just for publications, is that the marketer, the salesperson, the copywriter, the marketer has to sell the original order. That's got to
Mhm.
be done with excellent copy, with
Mhm.
a targeted list and a great offer. But then once they're in, you can send them all the promotions you want, all the emails you want to get them to renew. And nothing's going to do better to renew them than what they got out of the program.
Yeah.
So I changed it from marketers sell subscriptions, editors sell renewals to marketers and copywriters and funnel builders and agencies sell the order,
Mhm.
sell the subscription or the membership. The editor, the 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 um the product designer, the inventor, the the publisher, they sell the renewals. You're selling the renewals on useful content for your audience, and it's such a basic thing when you think about it. It's like,
Yeah.
people say, but people think that if I badger you with last chance and all these
Yeah.
things, if you
Scarcity,
didn't get what were promised from the original offer, you're never going to renew. So you need to remind them. I go one on one. Like if someone says they're not going to renew, and I remember they did a hot seat, and I know that their hot seat was incredible, I remind them of that.
Mhm.
I say to them, this is how you get people to stick with you. You say, look,
Yeah.
I know it's an expense for you, whether it's $1,500 or $2,000 a year, but
Yeah.
you didn't get the value by your hot seat and by this content that you told me you loved. But I kind of spit it back at them. You have to stay the way to do that though, and there are techniques, is to stay engaged with your audience. Someone is on a monthly payment plan, and
Mhm.
I get a copy of their monthly invoice for the
Yeah.
150 or $200 a month. I
Yeah.
send them an email with a copy of the invoice, and I say, "Oh, getting these monthly invoices reminds me to nudge you to come on a call, to do a hot seat." So you need
Yeah.
to engage with them. You can't just let them,
Be on the list and be there attending weekly calls.
and if they're not attending the weekly calls, they're going to feel distance from the group. So, I mean, they can get a lot out of the group and never attend a call. But if
Yeah.
they attend a call, I know there's a much better chance they'll renew. So you're not going to just get that magically. You need to encourage them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that's the piece on renewals. You have to stay engaged with your audience. You have to always be communicating with them. If they write to you, you need to respond
Hmm.
in a personal email without a bot, without ChatGPT,
Hmm.
as a person to person, human to human engagement. That's what's going to increase renewals for a membership or a coaching program. And then the third question you asked was about accountability.
Hmm.
And that was one that I did not solve initially, but I recently added a feature to Titan's Accelerator that I'm addressing that because people when on the calls, and you were probably on a call where we went into breakout rooms,
Yeah.
right? And they love the breakout rooms. They go into rooms of 5 people. I give them a question, they talk about it, they come back to the main room, and then we
Yeah.
talk about what they shared. But the interesting thing in that is that, you know, they loved it, but I didn't get to them every call because we had speakers and hot seats,
Yeah.
and I never got to the breakout rooms. So we just recently instituted what I call accountability pods. And
Hmm.
anybody who wanted to be in an accountability pod, they had to raise their hand and say, I want to be in a pod. We put now, I think, probably 80 members of the 250 into
Hmm.
pods of 5 and 6 people, and they meet weekly on their own with a
Apart
captain.
from the mastermind call with you, they meet separately as well. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they meet weekly,
Hmm.
and they have to bring their opportunities, challenges to those pods. That's the best way for them to get value in terms of directly on their business. If they're not going to do a hot seat with the entire group and in their
Yeah.
pods, they have to meet and share what's going on in their business. And so it's only been going on for like a month, but I'm already seeing this is going to be the best, what we call stick strategy, renewal
Yeah.
strategy that I've done among all the others in terms of because they're going to come back and say, there's a barrier to switch to another mastermind.
Hmm.
There's a pain of disconnect from the
Hmm.
group because they can't stay in the pod unless they're in the mastermind. And
Yeah.
it's so obvious again, but we as business owners and entrepreneurs, we sit there with blinders on and we just go full steam ahead and we don't think about what's right under our nose.
Yeah.
And the idea of doing accountability pods was right under my nose as soon as I launched the group 5 years ago. Um, and now they're in, and I think that's going to increase the renewals and
Hmm.
the lifetime value of every. And I don't want to do it. It's not just for the money either. They're going to get much more value if they have
Yeah.
continuity with the group, both their pods and the big group and the Facebook group, the
Hmm.
private Facebook group. So you need to incorporate all of that to create a community that
Hmm.
there's a it's a pain to disconnect from.
Yeah.
That's key in terms of, renewals and accountability. So I hope I
Yeah.
answered the
Yes,
question.
you did. Yes, you did. And you mentioned about the way you attracted your clients to these different coaching programs was through the list, through consistent blogging, consistently writing engaging emails. Now, I know this because I'm part of your list and I get a weekly email. And every email is personal. It has your personal experience, whether it's present or from past, and you bring in all these people. Your emails are long, they're simple, there's no graphic to it, it's just plain text emails, but they're long. And you know what? I have a specific folder called Brian Kurtz, and all emails go sit there. And whenever I don't have anything, like if I'm free or I'm getting bored, I just go and start reading your emails because I love one. I
Thank you.
feel like it's fun reading your emails because it's like I'm having a conversation one on one with you, and there's always a lesson and a learning in that. How do you, I understand you're a copywriter, you have English major, and you live and breathe marketing, and I'm sure you have special skills than all of us, but maybe you can share some tips on how do you write such engaging articles or
Yeah, I mean, a
newsletters.
lot of people think my emails are too long, and if they think they're too long, they don't have to subscribe. That's fine. But I,
I
but I
love
think
them.
thank you. The key is the storytelling. The key is, and the fact is, after being in business for over 40 years, I've got a lot of stories to tell. And I can retell a story in a different concept. Like I just
Yeah.
did one last week that was kind of like a repeat, but it wasn't because I had a new element to this. It was about levels of excellence. and
Yeah.
how, and I came up because I read someone else's blog and came up with another angle on it. Um, and also, I mean, the best tip is talk about marketing by walking around, copywriting by walking around. You have there's a blog post everywhere. Like when I
Yeah.
was at this event and this woman who was talking about knitting and talked about these elements of how she finds experts in knitting, I came up with a blog post that contradicted some of the things she said for my audience. Everything she talked about was spot on. It was great. But now I'm going to put a twist on it because I'm paying attention. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not a copywriter. I'm not. I'm not someone who can write like a soup to nuts promotion with an offer and all the benefits and all that. I rely on my marketing partner to do that. What I do is I tell stories. I tell stories with a purpose, and everybody has stories. And if you don't have them, you can find them. John Carlton, who's one of the great copywriters of all time, he said, you know what? And goes back to Gene Schwartz when he said, if you don't walk around in the world, you're finished. You've got to walk around and look for everything is a blog post for me, a potential blog post. Everything is an idea, a seed for an idea. And usually then I can relate it to something that happened in my career because I'm old. I've been doing this
Yeah.
for over 40 years.
Yeah.
So I can usually relate it to a story, but the new thing that came up, the thing that I encountered on the street or at the store or at a mastermind where an attendee becomes the seed. And then you gotta Friday is my writing day. You gotta spend the time of
Yeah.
quiet time by yourself, sitting at a computer at a keyboard and just free write.
Mm.
Writing is free. You can
Yeah.
just be free with it. And I just believe that everybody has it in them. Because again, I am not a copywriter. I'm not. I know certain marketing techniques and how to sell and all that, but that's not what makes. I rely on other people to do that for me. I'm not that good at that, but I am good at telling a story with a lesson that might lead into an offer of some sort. Um, and so the advice would be, walk around, get ideas, um, uh, get time. I mean, in fact, the 6th year renewal for Titans Accelerator, we give a something every year, and the 6th year renewal, one of the gifts is an egg timer, like a
Okay.
timer,
Okay.
and it says the Titans Accelerator Pomodoro egg timer. Pomodoro is a technique that Gene Schwartz swore by, which is that Pomodoro technique is that you sit down for some period of time, you have a timer, you set it for, I think the original Pomodoro was 25 minutes. You sit, concentrated time, you write or you concentrate, timer goes off, you get up, you walk around, and then you come back. It's not anything extravagant. Gene Schwartz's Pomodoro time was 33 minutes, 33 seconds. He would set his timer for that and he would get up, walk around. That's how he wrote all this amazing copy. So even as simple as, setting a timer of concentrated time is a good first step to becoming a useful writer. You don't have to become a copywriter. You don't have to become a world-class copywriter, but be able to really concentrate on the idea. And those are like my tips for. You can go to better copywriters than me to get actual structured copy and all of that. That's not my jam. My jam is like stories, idea, like concept, story,
Mm.
right from my experience,
Yeah.
or right from an experience that someone else had that shared with me. I also like emails. I get emails, the engagement emails from my list, from my online family. I sometimes like quote someone directly. Ben Settle, who's with a great email copywriter guy, he does this all the time. Whether someone is trolling him or someone is complimenting him or someone is like disgusted with him, he puts their quote in the email and then writes off of that. And I
Yeah.
never like shame people. Ben will shame people. I never shame people, but I basically show why they're wrong or why they might not be completely correct in their assessment, but I use it as a learning. And the learning is also part of accepting the bad news about yourself. I have a blog post that was, you know, your 1-star reviews are a gift. They're a
That's when
gift.
you learn the most and get better.
Exactly. And even if it's not true, if you can just accept them as true for the purpose of writing about them, you become a bigger, better person from it, as opposed to
Basically,
denying it and saying they're assholes. You can't go that way.
basically keep an open mind, keep an open eye, and look for stories everywhere. When you find something, make a note in your phone, in your notes, on a piece of
Absolutely.
paper. Keep noting these stories or ideas, because I believe that, when we are talking, like you and me, there's so many ideas coming in my brain to do this and do that, and maybe look at that story. Suddenly stories are all around my face now that I can pick up and
Everywhere.
start writing about. And
John Carlton, who's like not a warm, fuzzy guy. He's like sort of a curmudgeon copywriter, great guy, does great hot seats for people. Um, he said, when I heard him say something like, when you're out in nature, be mindful. It was so not John Carlton to say that. And this guy is coming up with ideas every day just by walking around in the world. That anybody can do it.
yeah,
Anybody can do
it's all there, it's all out there. My last
it. It's all out
question:
there. Yes.
for those listening who are looking to build a lasting business or a successful coaching program, what advice would you offer? What one advice? And what are the one key thing they should focus on to have a lasting business?
It probably ties into the 7 things that I discussed when that were evident in every great copywriter and marketer I've ever met in my career. And I'll quickly do them. I can't go through them in detail now.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost out of time. But
Yeah.
it's hunger, being hungry for the information. Um, um, Number 2 is have insatiable curiosity. Um, Number 3 is have appropriate feedback loops so that when you write something or you're launching something or you're thinking about an idea, have people in your life that you can bounce it off of who are at your level or above. The 4th thing is passion. If you start from passion in what you're doing, you're much further along as opposed to just, oh, that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like a good idea. Number 5 is like have some basic knowledge of direct marketing principles like lifetime value, renewability, continuity, RFM, um, the 40-40-20 rule, which I talked about, list the 3-legged stool of marketing. Understand basic concepts of marketing before you decide to launch a product or launch a program. Go from within in terms of your passion. Do something that you're passionate about and that you like to do, but get some knowledge there too.
Yeah.
So 4 and 5, passion and direct marketing knowledge go hand in hand. So that's number 5. Number 6 is humility. You've got to have some humility. You can't walk around with, I got the best thing since sliced bread and I'm going to sell it to you. And if you don't buy it, you're an asshole. That's not the way to do it. You really need to, romance your customers, romance your prospects. And I do it through story, but you can do it in a variety of ways. And you need to do it with humility. I'm very self-deprecating in my blog posts. That's who I am. I don't take myself all that seriously. You called me a legend. I'm like, I have to admit, I started, I was almost going to throw up, because I don't see myself as a legend. I'm a guy who loves what he does, loves to share it. I have hunger. I have insatiable curiosity. I always have amazing feedback loops. I have passion in everything I do. I understand direct marketing at a very deep level. I have humility, hopefully. And then the 7th thing is just pride in your work. Like, you know,
Yeah.
the copywriter who comes to me and says, "Can I write copy for you? Here's my portfolio." The portfolio is the last thing. I want to know you have the other 6 things before you show me your work. I'll look at your work, of course. I'll look at your resume. I'll look at whatever you want to show me. But that's number 7 of 7.
Yeah.
And so long answer to your question, and it's a lot longer because I blogged about it numerous times, and it's in my book too. But those 7 things I think are universal in terms of deciding what you want to do with your life, what you want to share with the world, what your vision is. And if you know, but like hunger, the first one, I always use Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers as the example of how you get there. You have to spend 10,000 hours to master anything. Well, maybe it's not 10,000 hours, but you got to spend more than 15 minutes. So if you're going to launch a coaching program or do something, the best thing, or do a mastermind, you better have done something in that area
Yeah.
that shows your smarts and shows that you've been there, shows that you
Done
might have
that. Yeah.
failed at it. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I,
Yeah.
that's the best I can answer that question.
And if somebody wants to work with you, be part of your masterminds, buy your book, would you like to share how they can find you?
Yeah, I mean, the best way, I mean, I'm not looking to sell anything because I'm the director of sales prevention. If you ever want to buy stuff from me, that's up to you. But if you go to overdeliverbook.com, if you want to buy my book, it's $20 and you get thousands of dollars worth of bonuses by buying
Yeah.
it there instead of just buying it directly on Amazon. So
Yeah.
overdeliverbook.com. But if you don't want to even spend $20 and you want to spend nothing, I want you to get the thousands of dollars of the bonuses. But if you
Yeah.
don't want that either, you just have to go to briankurtz.net, briankurtz.net. There's an opt-in to my list to be part of my online family. You get a download of an interview I did with the great Perry Marshall on the 3 biggest successes of my career, case
Mhm.
histories. It's an hour and a half interview, but it's worth listening to, I think. And then you're in my online family. You'll get my blog. You'll get my blog every week. You'll get there's a lot of free content on the site too.
Mhm.
My blog archive is there, so you can look back at my blog. You can put anything in the keyword search, entrepreneur, marketing, copywriter, funnel, whatever you're interested in, Facebook, whatever you're interested in, I've written about it, and then
Yeah.
I have probably have a blog post about it,
Yeah.
and then you can access all of my content that way. Um, and then you'll hear from me. I don't sell a lot. I don't do affiliates to my list, so you know I'll sell educational products like Breakthrough Advertising and the Breakthrough Advertising Bootcamp. You can decline anything. I usually put it just in the PS because
Yeah.
I don't want to get away from my stories and my blog posts. So yeah, it's a painless subscription. I'll tell you that. You're not going to experience any pain except if you hate my stories.
No, I love them. I'm sure everybody would love them. And I highly recommend the book, Over Deliver. I have it, overdeliverbook.com. And you also have a course that comes with the book, I think. If you
Yeah, that
buy
was
this
another one of
book,
my boot camps, the Over Deliver boot
yeah.
camp. We offer that a couple of times a year as well.
And
And
highly,
if
highly
you're in my
recommend.
online family, you'll hear about that.
Yes. So definitely overdeliverbook.com. I would recommend. Thank you so much, Brian. It has been a pleasure having this conversation with you. I will continue reading the mailers and hopefully join back my mastermind soon.
Oh,
Until next time.
love to have you. Love to have you. You were
Yes.
such a great member, and I know you're
Yes.
doing great without it, but
Yes.
it would be great to have you.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. Until next time.